The most important lever out of the ones that are left is the mindset lever. And there's two pieces to this. The first is the internal mindset, right? We'd refer, you hear the unique selling proposition, USP, market dominating position, MDP. I like to look at it as, is everyone on the team, in the company, your vendors, your suppliers, does everyone know what you do? Do they explain what you do the same way? Is everyone in the boat rowing in the same direction towards the same destination?
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. And it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Hey, I'm going to be speaking at a real estate and wealth builders conference in Phoenix this May. If you want to come hang out with me and get all your questions answered, plus learn about real estate, check it out. I'm going to put a link and a discount code in the show notes. And if you go back and listen to episode 144, you'll learn more about what it is. Did you know that a dollar doubled for 31 days turns into $1 billion? Okay, I admit, I don't know how to make that happen, but it does show how the small things done over time can add up to big changes in your bottom line. What small changes can you make in your business that add up to big dollars? That's our topic today. Even with Profit First, sometimes we start small with just 1% going to the profit account. And every quarter we add another 1%. Here's the reality. You won't miss $1 out of 100. But over time, it can add up to some big profit percentages if you keep at it. Our guest today is Jim Bishop. He's owned a retirement planning practice, a life insurance brokerage, and a real estate development company. He understands the processes and struggles of growing a business with a planned exit and can help other owners who want to do the same. He often assists business owners who know their craft inside and out, but have reached their limit on what they can do operationally on their own. Let's meet Jim and learn from him. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Jim Bishop. It's great to have you join us today.
It is great to be here, Rocky.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Absolutely. So I am a fractional COO operating out of the greater Detroit area with Bishop and Associates. I've been a fractional COO for the last 7 years throughout a number of different organizations. And then professionally, my background is big finance and venture capital.
Can you define what COO is?
Absolutely. So traditionally, your COO is your chief operating or chief operations officer. For a lot of companies, it's going to be the right-hand man to the CEO president. And in the fractional role, organizations that are growing that really should have someone who is working in the business on process, working in the business on making sure that everything's dialed in. Things that are important, but not as important as the CEO in their visionary role, that's where the COO comes in.
And I have always been a big fan of the merger of the two. You need a visionary who can cast the vision and build the excitement and even do some of the sales. But then you need an operations person who can make that vision a reality. When you have the two, you have a phenomenal business. I think in the small business world, we don't always get the two together. Sometimes we have one or the other, but not the two together. And I think that makes a big, big difference.
I would agree. And they're very different skill sets, right? So if you have someone who has a big vision for their company, then frequently it's going to be the little things that they have to let slide. Or if you have someone that has a big vision and they're so focused in on the trenches, then their vision is going to get worn away on the nitty gritty of those day-to-day operations. So having someone who's a visionary and then bringing in someone to integrate that vision really allows, right, the founder, the owner, the person who's got this great idea for how they're going to create a small business that's eventually a big business to expand and grow without burning out along the way.
That makes a lot of sense. So you are also a Profit First fan. How did you learn about Profit First?
Oh, now this would have been, going on 6 years ago. I was a up-and-coming executive with a real estate company. And one of our principals said, I read this book by this guy. I've been applying it in my own life. I think we need to take a look at it for the company. I said, okay. Dove in, read really everything that Mike had put out, right? So not just Profit First, but the rest of his backlog, and thought, oh, wow, this is just amazing. So we implemented Profit First into a wholesale real estate company. So not the guys that buy houses and flip them, but we'd buy houses and sell them to flippers, right? But inside that wholesale real estate, we, using Profit First, were able to drastically slash expenses and increase true profitability 30% in 3 quarters. It was absolutely amazing. It went from a big business with high expenses to a big business kicking off 7 figures a year.
Out of curiosity, why were you spending so much money on stuff that didn't matter?
I love that question. And I think that the real answer was because we hadn't really taken a look at what mattered or didn't matter, we thought everything mattered. We were carrying a lot of legacy costs. We were carrying a lot of legacy operations, and we never pared down to what was the most effective use of everyone's time. Now, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but while Profit First was getting put into our company, we were also going through the process of integrating into the EOS framework, and the two together really pared down those unnecessary expenses.
And I am a big fan of EOS, and actually kind of where we started, where we talk about the visionary and the ops person together. That's basically Gino's book, Rocket Fuel. When you put the two together, you have rocket fuel. Your business skyrockets because you've done that. I've talked to a lot of EOS implementers, people who use Traction, and the feedback I get from them is, we love systems. We're really good at them. We don't have a good financial system. What you do and Profit First fill that hole, and together, just like that integrator and that visionary, Traction and Profit First, you plug those two together and you do it and do it well, you're going to have a well-run business.
I could not agree with you more. It is very surprising to me with how much information is out there, good information and bad information, but how much information is out there that more people aren't seeing the synergy between EOS and Profit First. If I can get to a business that is starting to grow, they're kind of going through those growing pains, the owner/founder feels stuck, right? They're looking to take that next step. Unless they have a lot of bad habits we got to peel back, I love integrating both strategies at the same time, and we see consistent, giant growth when you can just have these frameworks that make it so not so easy to succeed, right? But every business is going to have its own challenges, but so easy to do all of the small things correctly because it's just laid out.
And we're going to talk about the power of small things in a second and how those little things add up to massive, massive differences over time. Actually, maybe we should just roll right into that. So you created a report for me, and it looks at different bullet points. What I found interesting was each bullet point only made a difference of maybe 1 or 2%. But when you add up 12 bullet points at 1 or 2%, you essentially end up with 20, 30% difference in your business. And this is not something you're going to do overnight, right? It takes time to do all of these different things. But when you start to see how focusing on the little brings about the big, big changes, I think that's important.
So there's a sales book, maybe even a lifestyle book that I recommend in addition to Profit First and EOS. There's a gentleman named Jeff Olson who wrote a book called The Slight Edge. And he talks about how little choices done consistently over time end up with huge results later on. And it could be something as, as far as personal development, reading that chapter of a book every day, right? Spending a few minutes with the top people on your team. Hey, what are you working on? What are you struggling with? Right? Spending time with your family, whatever area of your life you want to concentrate on. It doesn't mean you have to really dive in and go completely crazy, open the floodgates, get overwhelmed. But things that are easy to do are also easy not to do. And it's the choice to do a series of little things that end up with those big results, right? So anyone who hasn't read it, throw out there Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. But in relation to business and that report that I'd sent over to you, you're absolutely correct. Because if we're looking at a business and we break down the sales process, right? There's lots of steps inside that process. And you could say, hey, we are going to increase our sales by 10%. That's our target for this quarter or this year. That's great, but how are we going to do it? Is it one fell swoop where, hey, just sell 10% more? Or would it make more sense to look at each step in the process, right? What turns a suspect into a prospect? And once you have a prospect, how do you take that lead and turn it into a deal? If we break the steps down into easy little things and then find the most efficient use of each of those tiny steps, you end up with a snowball effect later on. And this works in sales. This works in marketing. This works in the type of recruiting and training you do with your team. It works in the way that you promote management. And it works generally with the owner's personal productivity, which is one of the areas that I really do like to focus on, for business owners, especially those who are using Profit First. They're using Profit First because they want to have their business create a lifestyle for them. And the second best thing to having more profit is having more time, which you can earn back by making those small changes in your business.
And that you can. And one of the things that we coach with our clients is it's not necessarily the business owner that has to take on all these changes. I'm like, who besides yourself on your team or in your company can do this for you? And that for me is big. It's not that the business owner needs to do everything. It's learning to delegate and get other people to do that.
Absolutely. When you have a team where everyone has a consistent vision, where they know what the long-term plan is, then you can say, hey, this is where we want to be in 10 years. Then, well, what's the steps that we need to take 5 years from now, 3 years from now, next year, next quarter? What do I need to be doing this month to hit that quarterly goal? And you can really break it down in those little pieces. One of the key things that I see is by breaking down the big tasks into so many little tasks, you almost want that business owner to be overwhelmed and you want them to have to cough up and say, I can't do this by myself. And then finally, that's when you really have that breakthrough. Yeah, you absolutely can't do it by yourself and you shouldn't have to. We can automate a whole bunch of this, but what is the team that you have in place? What would happen if you won the lottery ticket for not just the moon mission, right? But this round trip ticket to Mars. It's 6 months each way. You're going to spend a year there. You're going to be out of your business for 2 years. when you come back, would you want the business to be stagnant or have grown over that time, let alone, still exist? So I think that's the big key, right? Showing people that they don't have to do it alone, and really teaching, sometimes those business owners how to trust their team, but showing them that they can trust their team because they've been trained correctly. And there is a set of very clear processes in place where, in my mind, when these systems are set up correctly, there's very few questions that are asked that can't be answered by the manual or the handbook or the training in place, right? The fewer questions on the day-to-day operations that CEO visionary is going to get, the more time they'll have to actually focus on the big picture and driving the whole business forward.
It sounds like you mean they're not putting out fires all day.
Oh my gosh, right. It's good to have a fire department, but it's even better to just have a good plan in place so that those little fires don't creep up, right? And I think that a lot of that is self-inflicted damage, because there are parts of each business where the owner wakes up in the mirror, they look in the mirror and says, no one can do this better than me, not even someone that I've hired. And that type of thinking, sometimes they can get away with it when certain departments are built out, but there's always one little thing that they're holding on to, right? Until they can let their ego die around specific parts of the business and say, hey, I need to look at this holistically. Then those fires get started because two people are trying to do the same job. And the person who's going to give up first is not the owner, right? They've got some employee who says, I should be doing it this way. This is what's going on. But now my boss, who I can't say no to, is sticking their finger into it. And now we're putting out little fires. So absolutely. You can stop those fires before they start, though, by having some good processes in place and, most importantly, trusting your team.
I think where a lot of businesses struggle is deciding what to do first and then actually making sure it gets done.
I would agree. And I think that there's not a simple answer to that question, because the business has multiple facets, and this is any business, that are going to be running together, right? So there's a gear that's turning, and there's little cogs inside that machine that are going to look at your marketing, your sales, right? So there's the capacity side, right? How much business can we put out? But then there's also the capability side, right? Someone sees something online and they decide we're going to 10x, 100x, whatever amount of growth that their business is going to see. And they put all their energy into sales. They say, hey, sales fixes everything. And then they outkick their coverage. They sell more than they can commit to. So service dies. And now the existing customers are upset, as well as the new customers being upset. So for some businesses, they can grow too fast. Other times it's just the opposite. Hey, we can deliver this fantastic product, but we don't have a sales team to sell it. Or we've got a great closer, but we don't have the marketing in place to open it. So I think that business owners really do. And this is where, guys like you and I come in, where you have to have that diagnostic, right? If you go to your doctor and say, my elbow hurts, well, there's a lot of different things that could do that. And so you need to maybe have a little bit of time spent figuring out what part of the business needs to be focused on. But that's usually something that can be done pretty high level pretty quickly, right? It's where the owner is going to say to themselves, hey, here's this area where I feel stuck. Which is one of the key words I use in a lot of my messaging with my clients. Where do you feel stuck? That's usually a good clue on where we should start fixing the business.
And that makes a lot of sense. So let's dig into some of these different areas. What are some of the areas that we can make a small difference in that will lead to dramatically bigger results?
All right. So something I heard a long time ago that I like to say is it's those little hinges that swing big doors, right? And so taking a look at some of the work that I put together prior to this call with this theoretical business that you and I built, one of the first things that you can look at is your leads, right? For any business that has a sales process, how are you acquiring the ears and eyes to even know that you exist, right? It's a simple area where if nothing else changed and you increased your lead flow by a small percentage, that your existing sales effectiveness doesn't have to change, right? If I can convert 1 out of every 10 people that I talk to 100 people, I get 10 deals. I talk to 110, I get 11. Easy enough there, right? So the lead flow and finding a way to communicate your value to people that don't know about you yet is an easy, small change to make. But there's a couple different ways to do that. There's the referral portion, right? Do you want to keep working with the same type of customers that you have? If you look at your book of business, is there a particular customer that is high value, low maintenance, right? Do we want more of those? Is there a industry or customer profile that is actually a hassle to work with? And sure, they pay their bills, but they're going to spend an inordinate amount of time, right, on what they're working on. So have to figure out what type of leads you want, where they are, and how you're communicating with that, whether it's through marketing, those referral programs, having your team with all the different media that's out there today. Have you looked at a organic search approach? Have you looked at a paid search approach? What social channels are you on? Are you trying to fish where the fish are, right? So it'd be the first area to look at would be leads and marketing. From there though, who else are your customers serving, right? Very, very easy to make a small change in talking to the other people that your current customers spend money with and finding out where there's overlap. If you can get a lead without spending money on marketing, then you have an idea of how much you can pay a referral partner or what we call JV partners. Who are the other businesses that are providing value to your ideal customer? How do you communicate your value to that business so that all of you can work together? And if they're a good business, they're going to help the customers that you're already working with. And now you're cross-selling for each other.
And that's one of the things we do is we look at the cost and determine whether or not it's actually going to be profitable at the end. So there's a multitude of ways to increase leads. Some of them cost a lot of money. Some of them don't. But understanding the math behind it helps to make the right decision of where to increase lead flow. The second thing we do is we look at their existing lead flow and their existing marketing and try to determine, out of all the money you're spending on marketing, where are your leads actually coming from? Because many times we see people spend money on marketing that's providing no results. And so then we can reallocate that money to an area that's working better or maybe try something new.
Oh, absolutely. And having the analytics to actually track what your return on ad spend per marketing channel looks like is very, very important. But it's one of those things where in the hecticness of starting the business and growing and having these marketing going on there, we know, hey, I subscribe to the yellow pages. I'm inside the coupon book. I've got the guy from the neighborhood paper convinced me to sponsor an ad. Hey, I've done this hole at a charity golf tournament and now I've got business. But a lot of owners don't take the time to actually track, well, who came from where? They're happy that they have business. They know they've spent so much on marketing, but you really do need to know where it came from. Because, the other way to increase revenue is to cut your costs. And if you can cut out those pieces of marketing that aren't effective, you've got the ability to immediately increase how much you're keeping, which is one of the best parts.
It very much is. So what are some of the other areas that we can focus on?
So besides looking at leads, one of the other things you can look at is the lifetime value of a customer. So when we have our ideal customer, we figure out who this avatar is. We know who we're trying to target. We know that not everyone's going to be a perfect fit and not everyone is going to have the same value. But how do we overall increase the value per customer? Some of the things that you can look at are cross-selling. So are there other ancillary products that the business can provide access to, potentially get a referral payment for? There's bundling. Are there other services that are complementary to the service that your business is providing where there's the ability to say, hey, here's our first deal. Great. And now that's worked so good. Here's what we're going to be doing for the next 6 months of our engagement. Here's what we're going to be doing for the next year together. Here's our next project, especially in that consulting world, figuring out, well, how's the next way that I can help you? So bundling those things together. Occasionally, this happens to me too. You'll have someone say, I don't have the budget for that. Say, okay, well, what were you thinking? And they'll throw out a number. That creates an opportunity for a downsell. I don't love the idea of discounting because you're saying, well, I'm going to give you the same great service that I give someone else. I'm just not going to charge you as much for it. No, you should know what you're worth. But downsell is the ability to say, out of all these pieces that we've shown you, here's what I was going to deliver. You don't have the budget for this, and there's no problem there. But what should we take away? Do you want to take away the sales training for your team? Do you want to take away the recruiting training for HR? Do you want to take away some of this process? You let me know the piece that you want to get rid of. We'll take that off our scope of work, and now we can fit your budget. That's kind of the downsell. But there's also the upsell. When someone says, oh my gosh, this is so great, you have to think of other opportunities to help them. How can you do a little bit more? oh, this is great. And what I have found is implementation is usually where companies like yours run into a little bit of a hiccup. You don't have the team in place to take care of all these things. Would it make sense for my company to work with you on XYZ in field? Hey, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but we should be able to get this taken care of until you've hired that replacement. So there's the upsell strategy as well. So whether it's bundling other products, downselling into the budget that they have available, or upselling when they say, oh my gosh, this is really great. What else can we do? Are 3 additional ways to move small levers that have long-term big results.
And again, you're not looking for major changes in each of these. We talked about this at the beginning, and I want to reiterate, you're looking at maybe 1 to 3% on each lever. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And we'll take something as simple as price, right? If you have a customer base, you haven't increased your prices in a few years, and you suddenly come out and increase prices 50% because someone else is charging that much, you might lose half your customers, which might not be a bad idea, right? Usually the ones who are complaining the most that leave first. But that's taking a sledgehammer to fix a small problem. What if you just look at a regular price increase like inflation, right? A 0.5% or 1% price increase properly communicated, along with showing, hey, here's all this value. We haven't looked at our prices in a while, is an immediate analog to additional revenue. But it's nothing crazy, right? As a side, the only time I do suggest a higher price increase is when you have customers that, you'd like to get rid of the low-hanging fruit. When you're so busy that the cheapest customers that provide the least revenue, you say, hey, maybe we can price them out. But in general, yeah, small changes, whether it's to pricing, whether it is to, same thing with small changes to your costs. Right? We're not saying, hey, let's go in and slash budgets, but most areas of expense, if you really looked at it, they're not completely efficient. And we don't have to go for perfect efficiency, but to say, hey, do you think if we looked at this area of marketing and we called all of our vendors, we could get a overall 1% reduction in costs? Well, yeah, probably, right? And maybe it changes the terms of the payment. Maybe we're adjusting things like our net terms on payouts. Maybe we're switching that up. Same thing with getting our customers and saying, hey, I've got you on a net 90. I need to move you doing that 45, right? You don't take the 90 days anyway. So those little tiny changes can affect your cash flow and revenue as well as expenses. But you're not going for everything being a home run. Look back to the film and book Moneyball. They weren't looking for guys that were going to be home run hitters. The measure of success was get on base, right? And it's the same thing you should be doing with your business. What are these little changes you can add where you're just getting on base? Because if everybody gets on base, you're going to score over and over and over again.
And I would hope nobody is net 90, at least not on purpose, because you're not supposed to be a bank unless you're in banking. That'll cost you a fortune.
Oh my gosh. And the part about that is it is your smaller suppliers moving into a bigger realm that always have those worst terms. I am working with a company right now, which has a wonderful little product, and they're selling into one of the 2 biggest retailers in America. And they were given net 90 terms. And then we had to call and negotiate simply because by the time the new order came, they had sold out all of their stock and were expecting a fresh, 7 pallets of material when they hadn't paid for their first round. And this business was going to go out of business because they'd been so successful with bad terms. It's usually something a phone call can fix. But if you're a business owner who's more excited about making that first sale, you'll say yes to a lot of things that you might not agree with.
And I've heard that story way too often. And I don't think people realize you can very quickly have a ton of money out there and then have no money to make the next batch, in which case you're in trouble. So, yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Your co-packer might not, they're great that you're going to create another order, but they'd really like to get paid for the first one before it comes through. And that's why I think so many small businesses also have cash flow issues, because they're not thinking about that process. And a lot of the times they're not putting profit first, right? So I look at it as another reason to always talk with my small business owner clients about profit first. Is it helps them create a much clearer understanding of the cash flow and revenue cycle inside of their business.
And that it does. I know we're not going to get to all of the levers today. Let's pick maybe the most important one that's left out of the ones that are left.
The most important lever out of the ones that are left is the mindset lever. And there's two pieces to this. The first is the internal mindset, right? We'd refer, you hear the unique selling proposition, USP, market dominating position, MDP. I like to look at it as, is everyone on the team, in the company, your vendors, your suppliers, does everyone know what you do? Do they explain what you do the same way? Is everyone in the boat rowing in the same direction towards the same destination? So something that is usually free to implement, but can have a big effect on the efficiency of your sales and your marketing and your team, is everyone having a clear vision about who are we as a business? What do we do for our clients and customers? Where are we going? And how are we going to get there together? When you can articulate that from an ownership level and have everyone from the person answering the phone to the truck driver making the delivery to the technician who is working on the machine to the creative consultant who's designing an ad campaign for someone, saying, yes, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's how we help our clients, and here's where we're going to be in 5 years. By having a clear mindset across the board, that's a free fix because you're just training your people. That's a free fix that will increase profitability. The second part, though, is doing that same thing in the mind of your customers. And that's having a very compelling offer. Do your clients and customers know what you do? Do you have a message that shows how the service or product that you provide affects them directly? It's not just, hey, this is how much it costs, but what's the benefit that they're going to be getting, right? What's the result that a customer should be able to expect? And then with your particular solution, why is it better than the next guy? So that takes a little bit more time. You may have to spend some money getting that information out there into the market, but that internal and external having the correct headspace is the single most important lever you can move to have a big effect on the business.
And I think more often than not, we don't focus on this, nor do we get our messaging down where it's clear, concise, and understandable. More often than not, I hear like, oh, we do XYZ and ABC and CDF, and people can't remember any of that. Or the message is murky and people are like, I don't know what he does, but I'm not going to ask. It's too complicated. Getting it simplistic and easy to understand is an important step that I think too often we skip and we don't put enough effort into. And it drives all the marketing.
It does. How much simpler would it be if you had your message in place? Then you're not worried about, well, what are we going to do for this? What are we going to do for that? No. If your internal message is clear, then your external message will follow, right? The marketing that we have planned for next quarter, well, that's easy because we know what our goal is for next quarter. Does the marketing that we have planned for next quarter get us closer or farther away from our goal next year? Oh, wow, we could lay out the next 12 months of marketing because we know what our 3-year plan is. So by having that vision for the firm, having clarity and having it expressed to your team, all the other pieces start to come together and it makes everyone's job easier. It's not the same as having a manual and be able to say, hey, here's what we're going to do. But that clarity of purpose and then expressing it from starting at the internal vision to that external execution makes everything so much easier.
That it does. If people would like to learn more about the rest of the levers, learn more about you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So I am with JT Bishop and Associates, jtbishop.com, LinkedIn at JT Bishop. We offer used to call it complimentary, but sometimes we say hard things about businesses. So honest, but also free assessment of any business who'd like to get a look at where some of those levers can be. So they can find us online at jtbishop.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, Rocky.
So what small changes are you going to make in your business? This is what we do with our clients. and also as part of the Profit Blueprint program we offer. We show you how to make those small changes and help you figure out how they can add up to big dollars for you. The key is taking action. And if you're really smart, it's getting someone else on your team to take action for you and to make a small change. Which is why we always say you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Remember, we focus on the bottom line.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done for you service, you can hire us as your chief profitability officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
This episode of the Profit Answer Man podcast is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. If you've discovered us via the network, then I hope you enjoy today's show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss our episodes. Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.